There's probably no fictional world that's as detailed and comprehensive as Tolkien's Middle-earth from The Lord of the Rings. I mean, it has everything from religions to speakable languages, with every single facet laid down with extreme care and deliberation. Its history stretches across millennia, and over the years, so many characters have been added to this epic that nobody can actually keep count. Due to this, analyzing the saga can get a bit exhausting and even confusing at times. But fret not, because that's what we're here for. Today, we will be discussing the divine spirit that shaped and ruled this world, the elusive Valar. These demigods are undoubtedly some of the most powerful entities to have ever walked across Middle-earth, and definitely warrant a deeper investigation. But before we set off on this journey, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It might just be a small click for you, but to us, it means an awful lot. With that out of the way, let's begin. Who are the Valar in The Lord of the Rings? It's said that Middle-earth was created by an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent by the name of Eru Iluvatar, a timeless entity. He has existed in the Timeless Hall since the very beginning, and it was from him that all of life in the universe first began. First, he created the Ainur, the mightiest of them all. These entities are considered to be the offspring of Iluvatar's thought, as the creator literally willed them into existence. Each of these godly creatures was given a part of Iluvatar's understanding, and was kindled with the imperishable flame. Iluvatar instructed his children not with language but with music, which brought the siblings together. The Ainur would end up creating the music of the Ainur, a great song that would become the key to the creation of the real world. Through the music, Iluvatar explained to his children the nature and destiny of the world, which made the Ainur incredibly knowledgeable but not omniscient. After the world was created, many of these Ainur desired to descend into it and mold it in readiness for the arrival of the elves and men. Of those who agreed to enter Ea, or the universe, 14 came to be known as Valar. However, there was another by the name of Melkor, who rebelled against Iluvatar, but that's a story for another time. Once the Valar entered Ea, they gained a horde of followers who pledged their loyalty to the creator Iluvatar. They denounced Melkor for his rebellion and began shaping the world with their godlike powers, in preparation for the elves and men. However, this process was far from easy, as Melkor constantly interrupted them with evil schemes of his own. As divine children of the creator himself, the Ainur possessed no physical body or form, which made them invisible to most mortals. Nonetheless, these entities chose to take up the shapes of elves, men, and other forms of nature in order to fulfill their true purpose as emissaries of Iluvatar. Though many consider the Valar to be gods themselves, they are mere messengers who are not to be worshipped themselves. Due to this, they were never to take up positions as lords or masters, but were chosen to serve as guides for the children of Iluvatar. The creator also prohibited them from taking away the children's free will or using force against them. Due to their longevity, the Valar have had the privilege of witnessing much of the world's history unfold, but even then, there are some things that they don't know. It's said that there are still some parts of Iluvatar's thought that these creatures are unaware of, which is why they're unable to predict the true destiny or nature of the children of Iluvatar. It's certain that the Valar are incredibly powerful entities. However, what makes them truly intriguing are all the mysteries that arise from their mere existence. Who are the lords and queens of Valar? The ancient elves, or the Eldar, were able to identify the divine Valar and classified them into lords and queens. In this section, we'll be listing out all the known Valar and try to see what makes them so damn powerful. Lords of the Valar. 1. Manwë Sulimo, the king of Valar and the brother of the Dark Lord Melkor. This guy might just be the most powerful of them all. He ruled the Valar through multiple ages and had the winds, airs, and birds as his servants. He's considered to be the greatest Ainur in authority, but not in power. Number 2. Ulmo, the king of the seas, is known by many names and is considered to be the most powerful of all the Ainur. Even though his majesty is somewhat eclipsed by Manwë and Varda, he's still one of the most regal of his kin. 3. Aule, one of the Aratar. This high Valar is considered to be the smith. He concerns himself with substances like rock and metal, which can be used in his craft. 4. Orome. Orome is considered to be the huntsman of Valar, and is feared as one of the most powerful warriors of their kind. 5. Mandos. Mandos, known as Namo, was the Doorsman of the Valar, and was responsible for pronouncing judgment in matters of fate. It is said that he was also the keeper of the slain, whom he housed in his halls situated in the west of Valinor. 6. Lorien. Lorien was the master of dreams, and was responsible for maintaining the gardens of Lorien. 7. Tulkas, the most warlike of all the Valar. Queens of the Valar. 1. Varda Elentari. As Manwë's queen, Varda was considered to be one of the most powerful Valar. 2. Yavanna Kementari. The giver of fruits was responsible for all growing things. This nurturing goddess was probably the most influential one in the group. 3. Nienna. This queen of Valar dealt with tender feelings like grief and sorrow, as well as courage. She was known as the Lady of Mercy. 4. Este. Known as Este the Gentle, she ends up marrying Irmo. 5. Veere. Known as the Weaver, Veere was responsible for weaving the story of the world. 6. Vanna. One of the younger Valar and also Yavanna's sister. It is said that among the 7 queens of the Valar, she was the 6th to be named. 7. Nessa. The wife of Tulkas and the sister of Orome. She was the last Valar to be named. Relationships between the Valar explored. In the mind of the Supreme Creator, Eru Ilúvatar, the Valar were all closely related to one another. Interestingly, the Eru saw some of the Valar as siblings, while others were couples. It's also said that it was the Valar who first began practicing marriage before slowly passing on their customs to the elves and then the men. Among the Valar, Melkor and Manwë were considered siblings before Melkor decided to rebel against Eru's vision. The only remaining siblings in the group are Mandos, Nienna, and Irmo, Yavanna, and Vanna, and also Orome and Nessa. Some of the well-known couples are Manwë and Varda, Aule and Yavanna, Vanna and Orome, Nessa and Tulkas, Irmo and Este, and lastly, Veere and Mandos. Meanwhile, Ulmo and Nienna remain unmarried. The last Valar marriage to take place in our world was that of Tulkas and Nessa, which was held in Almarin. History of Valar in the Lord of the Rings lore. It's said that when the Valar first created Ea, or the world, Manwë Sulimo, the king of the Valar, was forced to fight against his wayward sibling Melkor. Manwë called other spirits to help him in this confrontation, which included the other Valar and the Maiar. This conflict came to be known as the First War with Melkor, and is seen as something of a cosmic event. Eventually, Melkor's forces withdrew and settled into the darkest corner of Ea, while the other Valar continued to shape the world according to Ilúvatar's vision. Centuries before the awakening of the elves, 3 of the Valar, Aule, Varda, and Manwë, took it upon themselves to illuminate the world, and created the 2 lamps, while they were residing on the island of Almarin. Under Valar's guidance, nature prospered, which caused much envy in Melkor, who wanted complete control of Arda, or the world. In a fit of anger, he destroyed the lamps, plunging the world into darkness and causing the Valar to retreat to inhabited lands, Aman, where they founded the mystical city of Valinor. The city was originally intended to be a fortress, from where the Valar could fight Melkor, but it ended up becoming a peaceful paradise. Meanwhile, Middle-earth remained in Melkor's clutches, slowly becoming darker and more corrupted. The Valar remained in Valinor, protected by its golden gates, and held councils in Mahanaxar, where some of the crucial decisions in the history of the world were made. During the Valar's time in Valinor, Melkor ruled Middle-earth with an iron fist, eventually causing the Valar to approach the Ring of Doom. Fearing for the children of Ilúvatar, they began the Battle of Powers, by the end of which they were finally able to imprison Melkor. Melkor lived as the Valar's captive for 3 whole ages, leading to peace in the realm. The Valar then decided to invite the elves to their home in Valinor. Though the King of the Sea, Ulmo, was opposed to this decision in the beginning, he eventually gave in and helped the Eldar to traverse the Great Sea. It was also during this period that the Valar welcomed the Calaquendi to Valinor, where the elves received guidance from the Valar and flourished on the holy light of Valinor. But as you know, evil always manages to escape one way or the other, and this was also the case with Melkor. With the help of the monstrous spider spirit, Ungoliant, Melkor was able to kill the 2 trees, depriving the Valar and the elves of their light. This event, known as the Darkening of Valinor, was considered to be one of the greatest tragedies that has fallen upon the world. This led to differences between the Valar and elves, with Feanor, the most gifted of the elves, standing out in open rebellion. It turns out that Feanor was the creator of the Silmarils, 3 powerful gems capable of reigniting the 2 trees. However, she refused to surrender these to the Valar, which led to conflicts between the 2 groups. But before this conflict could escalate, the Dark Lord Melkor stole the gems from Feanor. The elf blamed the Valar for Melkor's misdeeds and persuaded the elves that the Valar had abandoned them. Eventually, he convinced his entire kin to follow him to Middle-earth in order to fight anyone and everyone who withheld the Silmarils. Feanor's band of elves, known as the Noldor, then departed from the great city and were not seen again for many, many years. After their departure, the Valar created the sun and moon from the last living growth of the 2 trees and appointed 2 of their loyal Maiar to steer the bodies through the skies. But even these were not safe from Melkor, as he soon launched an attempt to destroy the moon. This forced the Valar to fortify Valinor, marking the hiding of Valinor, making the mystical city completely inaccessible. But this also meant that Feanor and his Noldor had been completely abandoned. For a long time afterward, the Valar neglected the people of Middle-earth, and they continued suffering through various wars and other catastrophes. Despite this, they tried their best to guide the children with Ulmo, even urging the elves to form their hidden kingdoms. As the end of the First Age drew nearer, the half-elven hero Earendil breached the hiding of Valinor and approached the Valar. He requested their help in the fight against Melkor, who was now known as Morgoth. At long last, the Valar accepted his plea and raised the mightiest army the world had ever seen, known as the Host of the Valar. This army was composed of the Maiar and Amanyar, who traveled to the distant Beleriand in order to face their enemy. Soon the Great War of Wrath ensued, and Valar's forces finally managed to defeat the Dark Lord. Morgoth was expelled from Arda, and the roads of Valinor were open to all the elves. During this time, there also existed a tribe of men known as the Edain, who had suffered the most during Morgoth's rule and the consequent wars. Due to this, the Valar gifted them the island of Elena, where they could spend their lives in peace. The Valar also blessed these men and their descendants with wisdom, knowledge, and longevity. The only downside to this was that the men were forbidden from ever traveling westwards. As time went by, the men, or the Númenóreans, began dominating the mortal lands, and began seeing the ban of the Valar as an unnecessary restriction. They soon began envying the Valar and the elves for their immortality, and soon the human king Tar Atanamir began speaking against the immortals. Manwë, the Valar king, sent eagle-shaped storm clouds known as the Eagles of the Western Lords to convince and threaten the Númenóreans to keep them from traveling westwards. However, Númenor fell under the corrupting presence of Sauron, who eventually persuaded the king, Ar-Pharazôn, that immortality could be found in the land of Aman. The gullible king gathered a great host of ships and began sailing west to break the ban of the Valar and wage war against the divine beings. However, Manwë preempted this problem and laid down the guardianship of Arda. Ilúvatar responded to this action by catastrophically changing the shape of the entire world, which led to the destruction of Númenor. Even the Undying Lands were removed from Arda so that no mortal could reach the place. Even the elves could only get there by taking the straight road, or by taking ships that could pass out of Earth's sphere. By the time the Third Age dawned, the Valar grew increasingly worried by the ever-growing shadows of Sauron, which led to a council meeting. They sent the Maiar out to the mortal lands in the form of old men, and formed an order of wizards who opposed Sauron until his demise in the War of the Rings. It's believed that as time goes by, the Valar's guardianship will grow increasingly weak, which will lead to the Dark Lord's escape. The Valar would then fight him one final time in Dagor Dagorath, and this brutal conflict would finally be the one to end the world as we know it. Despite the annihilation of the world, the Ainur will sing a second piece of Ainur music, this time accompanied by the elves and men. Though not much is known about this, it's still believed the second music and the second world will be far greater than the first music. Powers of the Valar, guardians of Middle-earth. As divine beings created by the Supreme Creator himself, the Valar are incredibly powerful in almost all respects. They're formless and invisible, but most mortals know them only while they're donning their fana, which is basically the shape they take when interacting with elves and men. These forms are inspired by the elves and appear extraordinarily radiant, as if lit by a secret source of light within their bodies. The great Valar stands taller than most elves, and can grow even larger when performing some awe-inspiring deeds. Without their bodily form, the Valar appear like extremely bright lights, of different hues that normal eyes can't even tolerate. Even Melkor has a similar effect on his environment when clad, even though he appears more like sentient darkness that blots out the light wherever it goes. Why is the Valar never mentioned in the Lord of the Rings movies? Well, Eru is indirectly referenced, especially during Aragorn's coronation. Strangely, the Valar are not mentioned in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, despite their crucial place in Middle-earth's lore. This is largely due to the fact that the film needed to streamline its story in order to cut down on the movie's runtime. Despite this, we do find some mentions of the divine creatures, such as in the scene where Aragorn is coronated. You'll find that Gandalf refers to the thrones of the Valar in his speech, which marked the beginning of Aragorn's reign. This emphasized the fact that Aragorn is a rightful ruler, with the divine authority granted by Ilúvatar and the Valar. These references to the Valar are even more direct in the original trilogy, where Frodo mentions the divine creatures whenever he finds himself in a tight spot, like when he faces a Nazgul on Weathertop. We also hear multiple references to them in the Elvish song sung at Rivendell. Even Bilbo mentions Manwë while singing the Ballad of Eärendil, which he calls the High Valar Elder King. The Valar also mentioned in the cries of the Faramir warriors. May the Valar turn him aside, Mumak, Mumak. And now, as we enter the post-Silmarillion age, it's certain that we will learn more and more about the Valar as Tolkien's lore is built upon by new writers. Did Tolkien ever rank the Valar by their power, from the strongest to the weakest? Since all the Valar are seen as extremely powerful creatures who were behind almost every pivotal creation in the world's history, it's kind of difficult to tell which one is more powerful than the other. Fortunately, in his book The Silmarillion, Tolkien gives us a list of 8 Aratar, who are essentially the strongest of their kind. Though there were originally 9 Aratar, the evil Melkor was later removed from their ranks. The list goes like: 8 remain, the Aratar, the High Ones of Arda, Manwë and Varda, Ulmo, Yavanna and Aule, Mandos, Nienna, and Orome. Though Manwë is their king and holds their allegiance under Eru, in majesty they are peers, surpassing beyond compare all others, whether of the Valar and the Maiar, or any of the other order that Ilúvatar has sent into Ea. Thus, the top tier consists of Manwë, Varda, and Yavanna, while Mandos, Ulmo, Aule, Nienna, and Orome stand as runners-up. After this come all the lesser Valar, who aren't considered to be Aratar: Lorien, Este, Veire, Vanna, Tulkas, and Nessa. However, as things get more complicated with more additions to the lore, one must remember that the Valar are creatures beyond our comprehension. Thus, the list could be misleading, as some of the lesser Valar could be more powerful in other aspects. Valar in other versions of Legendarium explored. The Valar also appear in Tolkien's The Book of Lost Tales, which suggests that the Valar is closely associated with pagan mythology. In this book, not only were the divine creatures able to marry, but they even had children. In these earlier conceptions, the word Vala is associated with the Quenya words for happiness and blessedness, Valin and Valimo. It seems that the word Valar translates to something like happy ones. Marvelous verdict. Well, the Valar are undoubtedly one of the most powerful creatures in The Lord of the Rings, a true embodiment of good and the vision of Ilúvatar. These creatures are tasked with maintaining the vision of Eru across the realms. By the way, which one among these Valar is your favorite? Please let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay up to date with all our marvelous content. Well, that's it for this one, but don't worry, because we'll catch you all pretty soon with another marvelous video. Goodbye!